Welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I am sick. And you're all gonna be sick with me. I am even now astral projecting myself into your rooms and into your houses to cough on your pillows. Uh, and that's all I got. I'm here with Ken and Anthony, who will be entertaining you instead of me. How you guys doing?
Reasonably well, thank you.
I'm day in my life.
Good, because I have. Uh, ugh. I'm gonna mute myself and let these guys take over.
All right, so as you can see from the title of the stream, which is Anthony's interest, we're doing topics that Ben is too much of a square to talk about himself.
Exactly.
Uh, Basically things that I have brought up to him and asked to do, and Ben said no, I have no interest in this stuff. And I would say fine because he's the person in charge. But now it's my time, and uh, yeah, right. The coup happens now. No.
I've always wanted to lead a coup. I guess in this case, I'm just kind of participating in it because I didn't lead it, but still.
Yeah, sure, I'll make you general. Now,
Eh,
what we will be discussing today, though, we were in between two topics, and because Ken has solemnly assured me that he can intelligently discuss this one, we will be discussing sports anime.
Huzzah!
So, both of us have seen a fair bit of them. Uh, in terms of overlap of shows that both of us have seen, the number is quite a bit smaller. I've seen most of the first season of Major Second.
Oh, you did
Uh,
see Major. Oh, we hadn't talked about that one in our
I
list.
haven't seen. No, I didn't see Major because Major is hard to find. You need to like
Right.
pirate
Pirate
it
it.
to find it,
Yeah.
which I would do, but it's more of a pain in the neck. Major Second was a little bit easier, so I watched like most of the first season of it, but
Oh.
I hated the character.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the
So
Major 2 is terrible. And the second
I
season is
have.
even worse. It became so Major 1 is kind of okay because it's a couple of kids and kids are just getting interested in sports and baseball, and it's all about two baseball lineages. But eventually in the second season they get to high school, and then it switches gears entirely, and it all becomes about a girls softball team that is coached
Really?
by the kid that's the catcher, and it's
That's
just
weird.
really disappointing. It's very, very girl power.
Yeah, and that was definitely like a thing in season one, but it was kind of subtle. So, Major Second, I wouldn't call it a bad show per se.
Sure,
Like, I remember having this discussion with you. Like, I hated the main character, but the flip side
sure,
here is that the main character wasn't actually a bad character.
sure.
Like, he was well constructed.
Right.
Everything about his backstory and the way that he reacted made sense.
Yes.
I didn't feel like he couldn't exist. I just didn't like him. Like,
For a little bit of context for you guys watching, the main character is just your typical lazy Gen Z kid who is playing video games and not really doing anything in his life. His dad was a Major League Baseball player, which in Japan, he came from Japan, went to the American leagues, got a World Series ring, and even now, dad is absent for most of the kid's life because he's playing baseball all over the world. The kid has no interest in baseball until, I mean, random happenstance. He makes best friend who is a pitcher prodigy, much like, and this other kid is a catcher. So it's all about their dynamic together. And honestly, considering how anime goes, it's entirely possible that they'd go a gay route. But I don't know. It felt more like a wholesome friendship.
mm, I don't think that's where they were heading. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think so. So I can explain to you exactly why I hated the main character, and it's
Go for it.
related to what you said, but there's something more specific about it. Early on, he's like super, like when we first meet him, I mean, really early. So like episode one and maybe two,
Hmm.
he is super into baseball. Like he
Yes.
wants to become a professional baseball player, and he
Yes.
tries out for the local team, and the coach tells him, "So you're really not bad. And in fact, you have a very accurate arm, especially for
Right.
your age, but you're not very strong yet." And hearing this specific criticism devastates him so much He literally quit.
Yes.
And I'm
Beca-
like, that's not even that bad of a criticism. Like, you're what, 10?
yeah, exactly.
Like, give it some time. And he just has absolutely no backbone. He has no fight in him, no will. I'm like, I hate this kid. Like, I don't root, like, why would I root for him? He
Right.
clearly isn't that interested. Like, literally, the slightest possible setback, like, the tamest setback you can imagine, is enough to make him give up the sport for years.
Yes.
Like, in the original Major, they do have a thing where they go, oh, your dad gave up the sport too, but he gave up the sport because his father died.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was incredible. Oh man,
Yeah.
Matt, since you've not seen it, I gotta tell you, I've seen lots of anime deaths. Spoilers here for a show that's 10 or 15 years old. Watching that kid's dad get hit by 100-mile-per-hour fastball, and then watch the kid who's like 5 years old, 6 years old, wake up to discover his dad lying dead next to him is just, oh man, it hurts.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, they describe it as if and like the way they describe it in the show is just like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, he underwent a setback too and he gave it up, except the setback he went under was way worse.
Oh yeah.
like, okay, I'm being a little bit unfair because the context is slightly different. The
Sure.
context is the kid had in the show at this point, the kid has now taken up baseball again,
Hmm.
and there's an accident in the middle of the game, and he temporarily paralyzes his friend, which is horrible.
Sure.
But that was not the first time that he
Kind of pansies
that
out.
wasn't the first time they'd given up. Yeah.
Right.
That was the second time that he'd given up. And okay, sure, that is a big enough thing that has dramatic weight. But the
Sure.
first time it was just like a coach told him, "You're pretty good, but you're not great yet." And
Yeah.
that was enough to make him quit.
Yeah, because he felt it was that ridiculous. I'm a secret king. I should be better than I am. How is it that I have to work hard for everything as opposed to just automatically being the best?
And like, don't get me wrong, this is what I was saying, where I could understand somebody liking season one of Major Second
Sure.
if they empathized with the main character, because he was not badly written as a
Right.
character. His reaction did make sense
Sure.
for the sort of character that he was, and the
Right.
backstory that they had set up. He didn't have a father at home. The father was a baseball prodigy, so he felt this pressure to be a baseball prodigy.
Hmm.
It all added up. I just didn't like it.
I totally
And
understand.
I
And
watched like most of season one, but I didn't finish it for some reason. But I watched most of it.
I don't think you really missed anything super important. I will say my favorite part about the show is the opening and the ending songs. I think it's the opening song, the first opening song, and then the second ending song. I think are just absolutely incredible. Some of my favorite
Even
anime.
remember them.
I know, but those
I'll look it
two
up
things are
though.
the
I
only
mean, it's
only reasons.
possible just because it's been a while.
Nah, no worries. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it here. YouTube. The easiest way to find anything. Major OP. Major 2 OP.
Here were the things I did like about the show.
Yeah.
His friend was great.
Oh yeah.
Was really great. I actually really liked the direction they went because it was a fairly lighthearted show.
Hmm.
And then there's an accident in the middle of a game, and his friend's just like paralyzed out of nowhere. And I
Yeah.
actually really liked the drama. Uh, like that part I liked. Um, and that's pretty much it. That's all of it.
Yeah. I
Uh,
absolutely agree.
Not like his female friend. Uh, just because like she was so blatantly a feminist insert, it was very obnoxious.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
they have the bully character says like she should be playing in the game because she's better than us, and like okay, yeah, sure, that is plausible at the middle school age,
Right.
but I would like to point out that that is the last year that is plausible.
Oh,
Once you
absolutely.
hit high school, it is no longer plausible.
Right. The reaction time. So I've had several conversations with people about the difference between softball and baseball. And yes, softball pitchers do tend to be closer to the plate, and their balls do go very fast for the time. But by the same token, reaction speed wise, baseball players just have to be like fractions of a second faster than softball players, which is very, very difficult.
Yeah, no,
Plus,
I'm not even like. Let's not even pretend here. It's not even
no,
close. It's
oh no,
not even close.
I totally understand. Yeah, I agree. And by the same token, the batting averages are so much higher in softball than in baseball. Like it's not uncommon to see somebody with a 400 or 500 batting average, whereas in baseball, if you get a 400, you are doing very well, even in the high school level.
Professional baseball, the last hitter to hit 400, uh, I believe that was the 1941 season. I got it's considered like one of the great seasons in baseball history because that was the same year that Joe DiMaggio had his 59-game hitting streak.
Yeah,
Uh, that was also the last year that a player hit 400.
let me
Like
see.
basically, it doesn't happen. The player that has gotten on the base the most in one season in baseball history is Barry
Mhm.
Bonds. He had an absolutely absurd season when he was shooting himself up with roids and
Oh yeah, that was
where
insane.
he had an on base where he had an on base percentage of 600. But like I cannot emphasize enough that
Hmm.
how absurd that is. It's
Yes.
so absurd that when I first read it, I actually thought it was a mistake and I had read something wrong. Like I
Yeah.
had to find another source to verify it. It literally is a number that doesn't make sense. It doesn't happen.
Okay,
You
so
do
no,
not get. Yeah,
you were actually really right. I honestly did not know this because I don't pay attention to cool stats like this. I'm kind of surprised you do because we've never talked about baseball. Ted Williams was the
I
last person to
actually
hit it.
love baseball. Sadly,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, then you have got to watch Major, the first one. I mean, I know. You know,
So
find
here's
find
the
your way to
deal.
do it.
I don't watch baseball nowadays. I am a Yankee fan, but I don't watch
Sure.
baseball nowadays because MLB's converged.
Yeah, yeah, that's
However,
fine.
I follow baseball, even though like in my heart I want to watch it, but I
Right.
can't do it.
Sure. I can
Like
appreciate that.
I still follow the team though, and I love this and baseball. I love the history of it.
Hmm.
I love the stats. It has the. I was an awful, like truly horrendous baseball player.
Mm.
My dad was great at it. It was much to his disappointment that I was never good at baseball, uh,
My dad was
which
the
is
same way.
funny.
He was very good. I think he could have done minors. He played baseball when he was in the military. He played softball in the military, um, and apparently broke apparently broke his arm trying to catch a fly ball. And having now played baseball in my 30s or softball in my 30s, I can absolutely say, oh yeah, yeah, it really does hurt trying to play a sport that you played when you were a kid now in your adult years.
Yeah,
Because I
not to go too off topic on our past, but I was a decent soccer player, but I could not
eh,
play baseball. I was so bad.
sure,
And the funny part is that I was actually part of some very good baseball teams. Like in middle
right,
school, my baseball team won the championship twice. And
nice,
despite the fact that I was a pretty good soccer player, we
hmm,
never won.
ah,
We came in second place like twice.
right,
And once we probably should have won the championship that year.
hmm,
But in baseball, I won twice. So I always say, like, I guess it balances out. But I was such a bad. I was such a
uh,
bad baseball player, man. And my dad was so disappointed in us because he was a great player. And like your father, my dad wasn't quite good enough to be professional, even low
right,
level professional, but he did try out for a minor. He got a tryout. So,
nice,
which still puts him up in the upper percent, you know, of play. Uh, but whatever. And in terms of major, I do want to watch it one day.
sure,
Make the time to pirate it. I haven't actually watched you or anime that's coming out in a while.
right.
Real anime. There is stuff that looked interesting that I want. It is, my interests go in cycles and cycle.
I can appreciate that.
Bradford Walker. Yep. Says if I had two legs in bowling, I may recover my form, but I will be in a home before my average drops below here.
Fantastic. Way to go, Bradford.
I broke once, so I'm sure you're all very jealous that 100
Yeah,
is
Anthony. No, no, but none of us
one
can
of
understand what you're saying,
the
Anthony.
sport.
That's what Ben is shocked about.
I said
Your audio is so digitized right now that it's almost impossible to understand you. But I,
all right.
however, sound fed. There we go. Oh,
Some
that's not so much better.
okay. Oh, I was that would at
Oh,
least
and you died again.
bullet. Say no. Uh,
Whatever you previously did, Anthony, it was
what?
fantastic, and then you killed yourself again. Oh, that must be it. Let's see. While he gets that finished, I will list off the other sports anime I've watched, and then we'll probably talk about that again once he gets back into the land of uh, actual audible audio. Let's see. I
How
have
do I
watched.
sound from this? How do I sound at the moment?
You sound a little echoey, but at the very least, it's not digital.
So I had a microphone plugged in to try and get rid of the echo. Apparently, this does not help.
Oh boy. Oh, this is highly entertaining, my
Guess
friend.
we'll have to deal with it.
Say again,
This
Anthony?
is every live stream and it kills Ben. It's every live stream and it kills Ben.
Oh yes, no. I think it's not so much your audio that needs work; it's your internet connection, which is absolutely abysmal. It could be that your family just needs to stop being on the internet at the same time you're on.
No, I don't think anybody else is on the internet right now.
Ah, tragedy. Well, we'll just blame New Jersey then in general. Curse you, New
That's
Jersey.
honestly accurate.
Yeah,
That's probably accurate.
fair.
So the other show that I've watched
Mm-hmm.
is Haikyuu. Did you watch the new season of Haikyuu, by any chance? 'Cause I haven't.
I have, yes. I've watched the new season of Haikyuu, which to everyone watching, Haikyuu is a fantastic volleyball anime. I have no interest in volleyball whatsoever, but this show does an excellent job of explaining the strategy and the skill. I only know that it does a good job explaining it because the person who introduced me to the show is herself a very, very good volleyball player. But I of course have no interest in it because I am not very tall. Ironically, of course, the plot is a not tall person becomes an amazing volleyball player. Uh, and it's really interesting. The first 3 seasons have some absolutely fantastic animations, some really good basic characters, but they do the basic characters very, very well, um, such that you begin to really empathize with them. You know who they are. You're like, oh yeah, this is the guy that does X, Y, and Z. Um, and it's just great. But the sports, the moment of impact, they slow down when they need to, they speed up when they need to. They make you think, oh, people that play this sport are equally supernatural, but also it almost feels within your reach. Like, you could probably do that. You can't. You probably are almost absolutely as uncoordinated as I am, and it would just take a volleyball to the face every single time you tried. But you feel like it's possible. Is that
This
kind of
is
how you feel watching it?
yeah, this is a fine defense, or I don't know if even defense is right. So I'm not really criticizing it. A fine
Synopsis?
defense of IQ. Uh, or a fine, I don't know, a good rundown of the appeal of IQ.
Sure.
So when I ranked IQ, we did our anime tier list. I put IQ in the B tier.
Sure.
And the reasoning was I liked IQ. I thought
Right.
it was a decent, good show. However, I found the characters, who are apparently, by the way, absolutely beloved by many people. So I
Oh
am
yeah,
in the
like ridiculously so.
yeah. I found them very generic.
Yes, I agree.
Especially Hinata, I found very generic. And the other characters, I found very. And
Yeah,
I
the
think that
characters
they
are painted
were
with a very broad stroke. They're the kind of like they're the average characters in any anime that you're going to find, any
and
sports anime.
apparently, I am very much in the minority here.
Sure,
Because the characters in Haikyuu are adored. Like
it's ridiculous how
they
much.
frequently make the lists of like most beloved characters in the anime.
Right.
Like, people make those sorts of lists.
Sure.
Haikyuu is always ranked near the top, and
Right.
I never understood it. Like, legitimately, I watch the show and I'm like, yeah, they exist.
I would
Like,
say it's one of those things where the music is fantastic, the acting is pretty good, the script writing is okay, but really I'm just there for the animation style. I'm there for the fast-paced action.
I've never been a fan of the Haikyuu character designs, which are admittedly at least distinctive, and I do give them some credit for that, and they look very good in motion,
Sure.
which is important for what they're doing.
Right.
I like Haikyuu a lot. So what I like about Haikyuu, though, honestly, is that it feels very classic. You know, like, you want to watch a sports anime? Haikyuu is kind of the high school sports anime.
Right.
Yeah, it is about a plucky underdog team led by a plucky underdog kid who joins a team with his rival, and they go to win the national championship. Go. Very straightforward, very classic, very
Right.
not much, like, there isn't going to be that much to it, I guess,
Hmm.
but it's also going to really scratch that itch.
Right.
And I get it, and I liked it. Like, the territories now was the match, the big finale match. I think it was like the entirety of season 2 or 3 or something. It was the Territory Tower
There's
match.
always a tournament arc in that series.
Yeah, like, that one match was like the entirety of the season, and it was great. Like, really dramatically done. The music is fantastic. The animation's great.
Right.
With that said, what is in some ways, it's, what I consider like the appeal of Haikyuu, the fact that
Hmm.
it gives you this classic experience and scratches that itch, is also why I don't really rank it that high in the end,
Sure. What's that?
because it's just so generic.
Sure.
Like, the the main character is so generic. I know that Deku. He is the same character archetype as Deku, as there's another one who's a similar type of character that I'm completely blanking on.
I mean, he's
But
just that
you
similar,
know what I
he's
mean.
and yet
The
even not
plucky
though, because
underdog.
Hinata is also very, very stupid. Whereas Deku is overly smart and overly analytical.
To be
Part
honest,
of
though, that makes Deku the unusual one. I think if we're gonna
I agree. Yeah, it is not
and that's one of the
uncommon
reasons I
for
did.
anime protagonists to be dumb as rocks, and I kind of hate that, but for some reason
Yeah.
that's just what Japan has done is they want to see dumb main characters.
And by the way, it's one of several reasons I actually think that Deku is a much better character than Hinata. And generally, I think that the cast of My Hero Academia, because I have always said this, and I will defend this, uh, that Horikoshi's greatest strength is not what people think it is. It's actually the fact that he's brilliant at character
Sure,
writing. And
you can see it.
My Hero Academia has absolutely brilliant. Now, people have said the same thing about, I think, is Ida? I can't remember, the Haikyuu mangaka. People have said the same thing about him. He's so great at writing characters, but I don't think there's a comparison here. Like,
No, there really
Deku
isn't.
uh, are very much in the same type of character, right? The
Right.
plucky underdog who needs to reach the top. That is an anime type. The other one that comes to mind, yeah, but there are so many that I'm just like, so many.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how many there are.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, that the devil then is in the details with these characters. I always thought, and I still think, that Deku is under the radar and extremely well constructed. Like, I don't really see any issue at all with Deku as a character, whereas Hinata, it's like he works, he's functional, but there's nothing that interesting about him. I don't really see like what would make me specifically get attached to Hinata over any other one of these Diamond Destiny characters. Whereas with Deku, I could explain the story, why he is the way he is. Whereas, like, the why of Hinata is he really likes volleyball.
I will say this could be part of the reason the characters are so loved. I've never You are the only other guy I've seen like the show. Every other fan of the show is a female, and it's entirely and based on the fan reactions that I have seen, it's mostly your typical fangirling over a cute boy regarding
Well,
the
I've
characters.
mentioned him to you, though
Yes,
you don't watch him yourself. But Alexander, who is my absolute favorite YouTube critic, he is
right.
in the S tier and he is the best. Adores Haikyuu.
Okay.
He probably has like a dozen videos, and I don't think it's a necessarily. And I'm glad that he can find this sort of insight in the show. But at the same time, it's like I don't think that the messages that he's pulling out on it are as profound as he seems to think they are.
No, no. I mean, you got your typical sports anime of doing your best and overcoming adversity and all that. It's really not that complicated.
Now, this is why I like Haikyuu is a great show to Kuroko no Basket because in many ways they're mirror images of each other.
What
I
is? I
much
couldn't understand.
Kuroko no Basket, and don't get me wrong, Kuroko no Basket is by no means a perfect show, not even
Okay,
close. And I wouldn't even say that. But I do think it's a lot more interesting than Haikyuu is. With that said, partially it's a taste thing,
sure.
but like here's the main difference to me. I'm going to describe the two premises of the shows, and I'm going to try and do it in a way that does both shows justice. Like,
All right.
I'm not going to try and make Haikyuu sense. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, Haikyuu is about a high school student who is physically a bad fit for the sport that he loves, but he absolutely loves it, and he has a very specific skill. He can jump very high. So, he wants to be on the high school volleyball and he joins the team with his rival, and together the team, after hiring a coach and going through all of this stuff, make a run for the nationals as underdogs. And that's the plot of Haikyuu. That sound like a fair description to you, or am I
I'd say
not?
that's accurate. That's accurate.
So this is the plot of Kuroko no Basket. The plot of Kuroko no Basket is that there is a team in Japan known as the Taiko basketball team, and the players on the team are all prodigies, part of a class of basketball players known as the Generation of Miracles. So, fast forward to high school, and a basketball player comes from overseas. He's Japanese, but he's been living in America, and he learns about the Generation of Miracles from the mysterious sixth player on the team, the Phantom player for the Generation of Miracles, Kuroko. And together, Kuroko, the Phantom sixth man on the Generation of Miracles, and Kagami, this new overseas basketball player, decide that they are going to take on each member of the Generation of Miracles one by one and take them down as their goal. Now, I don't know about you, but that is an absurd premise.
Yes,
And it's
absurd to the point
way
where I
more.
would not be interested in this at all.
I totally understand that because it's ridiculous. But
Yes,
to me, it sounds way more cute.
sure.
Like that immediately at least grabs my attention.
I will say it grabs you, but for me, I do not like the over-the-top ridiculous anime. I hate JoJo. I think I'm the only anime fan I've ever known who cannot stand the show.
It's
Um,
totally fair. I mean, I'm not.
I know, I know. I think we all are like you're close to death, Ben.
Ooh, I like
And so the idea is the more ridiculous the premise is, yeah, it may be interesting, but it strikes me as so absolutely absurd that I just can't care.
So I totally understand. And I have described Kuroko no Basket before. What if basketball players had JoJo stand?
Sure.
Um, but with that said,
Right.
one of the reasons that Kuroko no Basket just sounds so much more interesting to me
Right.
than Haikyuu is that it's just like it's such a crazy premise. And the other thing too is that the show 100% knows this, and
Sure.
it plays it with this combination of hyper seriousness and over the top that I think gets the appeal perfect.
Right. That kind of
So
over the
the
top that
go-to
only Japan
example,
can do.
yes. So my go-to example is they have a thing happening in the final match, and they talk about entering the zone.
Right.
And now only like the truly great players can enter the zone. And they stylize entering the zone like these hyper intense visuals, lightning flashes out of the corner of their eyes. So the final game starts, and then you see our main boy Cotton grabs the ball, lightning flashes out of his eyes. The crowd gasps. Everybody is horrified. Can it be? Has he entered the zone in the opening minutes of the game? Is he mad? Is he insane? What sort of lunatic would enter the zone in the opening seconds of the game? Will he burn himself out? Does he truly believe he could the entire game? Surely not. What is his plan? And that is the appeal of Kuroko no Basket. It is this absolutely absurd, ridiculous, over the top lunacy that everybody is taking hyper mega seriously.
Absolutely true.
I love it.
I love
And
Bradford Walker's comment here. He would love to watch a Knight's Tale focus on European martial arts tournaments, which I think would be fantastic. Kind of HEMA would be hilarious. He also suggests that the quality Eurocentric stuff is tied directly to the author familiar with the material, in which case bringing up that average ain't going to happen without Western collaboration. So if we want that kind of stuff, we need to basically do it ourselves. Which, yeah, I mean, that's right. If you make the content that you want to see in the world.
Yeah, I've always said I would like to see people, Western writers, and that includes myself one day, attempt more like shonen style work.
Sure.
Here's the thing, shonen, as has been pointed out by quite correctly, shonen is not a genre.
Right.
Right? It's an age group. But it is an age group in which probably the most diversity of stories exist.
Right.
As many people have pointed out, there are romances that in America would be marketed 100% towards girls and only girls that are marketed in Japan, shonen.
Sure.
And sports anime and fantasy and superhero, all sorts of things. And the only thing that really binds them together, sure, there are tropes in common and things, obviously, and sometimes it leads to them being much mocked, but you will get all sorts of different things that are just marketed under the umbrella of young boys will probably like that.
Sure. And also,
and I really
to
would
give
like to see people writing more in the West. I would 100% be interested in writing, basically a sports show in one day.
right. And also, so let's see. We talked about Kuroko no Basket. We talked about Haikyuu. Most of the anime I have watched in terms of sports are the baseball animes, and of course, Japan being huge into baseball, most of the stuff they've done is baseball anime when it comes to sports. And while we did kind of talk about Major and Major 2, Major Second, which is, yeah, we both agree is a disappointment compared to the first, even though you haven't seen it yet. I really liked a show that is a combination of rom-com and sports called Cross Game. This was actually one of the first anime that one of my best friends recommended to me because it does not have that over-the-top feel that Kuroko no Basket has, or JoJo, or most anime in general. Because it's a very sedate, very calm, very sad anime about how this one small town and this one boy tries to deal with the death of his childhood best friend. Which, if you know me at all, you know that watching people die in anime is always my favorite pastime. I can't experience emotions like normal humans do, so I, of course, substitute anime to give me the feels that I'll never be able to experience in real life.
Have you seen Mono?
Of course I have. Multiple times.
Anyway,
Beautiful show.
looking up Cross Game right now.
Yes, it is 2 words. I will say the animation style is very simplistic, and the sports arc isn't always great. This thing tends to shine more in the interpersonal drama. It is more of a character study than, for instance, Haikyuu or anything like that. They will cover the sports games, of course, obviously, because they have to. But the competition itself isn't nearly as interesting to the author as will the main characters ever actually find each other? And
Yeah, it
frankly,
looks like it's a romance, right?
it looks like it's what?
Romance.
Yes, it is a romance. That's why I said rom-com.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it looks interesting, honestly. I'd probably like it.
I'd say it's a good A tier show. It's not S tier. You might even I'd even see you give it a B tier and be totally fine with it. It's very much slice of life. You watch it kind of with that peaceful feeling of, oh, this is nice. This is normal. You know, yeah, there are competitions and yeah, there are stakes involved, but you never really feel that uh, over the top edge. Yeah, that's another thing. There is no edge. This is not an edgy, dark, teen angst show. Just nice,
Getcha.
simple, calm pleasantness, really.
Yeah, that it reminds me a little bit of the way you're describing the tone of the show. Reminds me of Wind, which is another.
Okay, try to say that again, because I couldn't understand the words you said.
The tone that you're describing reminds me of Run with the Wind.
Okay, Run with the Wind. Got it.
Which is the cross-country anime.
Right, which I've never seen.
So,
can you describe it simply enough so that even if we don't understand every other word, we'll still understand what you're saying?
sad face. Yeah, sure. So to everybody here, give me like a month and a half, and I'll
Nobody heard that. After give me a month and a half, you cut out. But I'm assuming everyone, he's saying give him a month and a half and he'll have a much better setup, better microphone, hopefully better PC.
Yes. In theory.
In theory. Whereas as his sound editor for Pinkerton's Ghost, I'm just going to be the entire time praying for death. You don't get off that easy, Ben.
I have the good mic, but I don't set up the good mic for the live streams because it's a pain in the neck.
Wait, you have a good mic, but you don't use it because it's too much effort?
Yes and no.
Just think how many viewers we could have had if you sounded good.
Set it up. It's the fact that I need to be like sitting in a certain way to be using it, and doing it for like 20-minute stretches for recordings is doing it for 2 hours of live stream.
Anthony, think how many viewers we could have if you sounded good.
You're right. I'm just that appealing.
You are.
Okay, so I'm going to try and describe Run with the and compare it to what you were saying. Because we're gonna try and compare it to. So Run with the Wind is not a but although there is a bit of a gay gay thing going on there. It's pretty simple. Just anime. Yeah. But it is a slice of life. I would consider it a slice of life anyway. The plot of Run with the Wind is that in college, somebody wants to start a college running club, and they don't have a team set up already. So he opens up, like, basically says, "Hey, I'll give you free room and board at this house that I have." And then when they get there, he says, "Cool, now that you're staying here, if you want to stay, you need to join my cross country team." And everybody is at first, of course, extremely angry. It was, of course, everybody was extremely angry, and then they get into it. Like, as the story goes on, obviously, they get invested in the team, and they get invested in, what's going on, and they slowly grow into, they all need to, like, understand what running means and how it affects them. It's a very slow-moving, very chill show. Doesn't have a lot of that sports anime craziness like Koroko or whatever. So Run with the Wind was actually much beloved after it came out. And again, Alexander ranked it as one of my favorite shows. And I totally understand why, because it really explores the characters in a very deep way, but I had a very specific. And the problem that I had is that I ran cross country in track in high school. And it immediately did not pass the smell test to me that all of these college students who had never run before would just continue would join a class. Even if it meant ruining at least a couple of them, like one or two, at least would have said, fuck this, I'm not doing it, and half-assed it. Like they would not. There is no way that you would have gotten an entire team of people who would have been that in love with and invested in running. Running is awful. It is absolutely awful. It is
yes,
painful.
absolutely it is.
Yeah. And I was a varsity track runner. I wasn't great, but I wasn't terrible. So, like, I did it. And
Sure.
it is just the worst. And they were not running short distances.
Right.
Like, they were running 10 miles at times, which is
Right.
more than I've ever run.
Really?
In one sitting. Yeah, the most I've ever run in one sitting.
Wow.
Yeah, I ran 5. Cross country is only 5Ks, which isn't actually 3 miles. Sure, you run longer than that when you're training, but the longest that I ran in training was 5 miles at a single clip. And the fact that these people were not interested in running first, that they had to be blackmailed into it, like I just totally did not buy that they all got into it, because most people are not going to enjoy it. It's something that you need a very specific personality to do. And I remember being in cross country, people go, "You hate it. Why do you do it?" I understand the appeal of the show because it is an interesting question to answer. Like, that's true. If you hate it, why are you doing it? And you need to come up with that answer, right? And the answer, generally is something along the lines of to push yourself, test yourself, to prove to yourself that you could do it. And it's not really about the other people, it's about how you can push yourself. And yeah, okay, that is absolutely a valid thing for an anime to explore. I'm not saying it isn't. What I don't buy is that people who aren't interested in running in the first place are going to continue doing it. There just isn't enough innate appeal to me to buy that.
Right.
I'm not saying that it is a bad show. It isn't. It does a good job exploring characters. I mentioned they had like the gate. It's pretty lightly sketched. And it's honestly just subtext. Pretty easy to ignore. Typical anime trash. I'm not going to defend it either. It's trash, but
sure.
It's also pretty easy to ignore, so it doesn't ruin the show. And like as far as the exploration of the characters and reasons for running go, like it all works, and I totally get why somebody would find it. But as somebody who has run before, I'm just like, see, like why are these college students just doing it? Like even if he's blackmailing them, how is one of them not said, all right, you need 10 people to run this race, right? Well, tell you what, I'll walk the race, and the rest of you can run. I'm not running. Yeah, like it just doesn't make sense to me. Because it's a pretty cruel thing that he's doing. Forcing him to do something is painful and terrible. And I don't really think that that was ever fully appreciated. Apparently, this was based on a much longer novel, and like they drastically cut it down for the anime. And I wonder if this was explored more in the novel. Now, in terms of the tone, it's definitely not over the top. It's a very grounded feeling show.
Which is always
And that I
fantastic.
think, yeah, that I think is where the with the show you were talking about, what was it? Awesome.
Yeah, cross game, right?
Cross game, yeah. Where cross game works.
Sure. And yet, when it comes to crazy shows, we talked about this a little bit in the interim. We were arguing whether or not this would actually qualify as a sports show, and I will say it does, just because it matches all of the same beats, even if it's not actually about a sport. Well, I am, of course, talking about Shokugeki Neisoma, or known as Food Wars. The the classic tale of a boy who follows in his father's footstep to become a world-renowned chef, and to do so, he must conquer, indeed conquer, an entire school full of bullies and people that are so much better than him in their own eyes. But he, having come from a humble diner experience, finds himself able to impress and overthrow all these very flamboyantly silly characters in what could be best described as, I mean, it's ecchi. It's just ecchi. You watch people eat amazing food and all of their clothes come off. It's
Yeah,
hysterical.
I could not get past that. I couldn't do it.
It's so ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous premise, absolutely. And yet, for some reason, I love it, because the main character is so incredibly confident. He is everything we talk about main characters being kind of, dumb or lazy or whatever, which is the norm in anime. Nah, this kid is the best. He is the most alpha of alphas. He barely even has an arc, to be honest. In that, he's kind of boring. He barely has an arc because he's always the best, and he's always confident. And even when he kind of loses, it's really more just a temporary setback before he turns the tables and does something even more awesome a little bit later. The last season is absolute trash. It is one of the worst disappointments in anime since season 2 of The Promised Neverland.
Ooh,
Yeah. That thing
ouch.
was terrible.
It really was
I can't believe they did that. Oh,
so bad.
there's nothing redeemable about it.
No, though. See, here's the thing, Ben. I have read each part of the manga. My sister read the entire manga. It is way, way worse than the manga. When I say, like, I cannot emphasize enough to you that the manga was probably a 6.5 to a 7 to the anime's 2. Like, eh, 2, maybe 3. I guess the story did technically make sense, so we'll bump it up to like a 3. No, I can't agree with that excuse. That's an excuse. It did not need to be that bad.
Yeah, I agree. And granted, I never watched I never read the manga, but the anime first season, one of the best seasons of anime. 10 out of 10 would recommend it to anyone. The second season, 1 out of 10. They absolutely did not live up to the promise of the first season.
All right, so
Yeah, like
I'm unmuting
there's a
myself.
drop.
So here's the thing. Promise Neverland was always going to be bad after the original arc, because the author couldn't pull it together long enough to create the same sort of dramatic tension and, shall we say, mystique. They couldn't spend the same amount of time on it as they could. The original arc in the manga is like 10 chapters. It's actually way shorter than that. Or 30 chapters, excuse me, all told. Excuse me, I came
Is
in
that a
with
lot? I don't know anime, or I don't know manga.
Think of it, that's 30 Pinkerton's
It's not a
Ghost
lot.
episodes.
Okay, it's a lot then.
So, for 30 Pinkerton's Ghost
See, I don't.
episodes,
I don't.
they set up the first bit and it had a great amount of tension. The problem is,
Right.
is that whenever they, whatever, I don't know their gender, tried to rebuild what they had in the first season, they did
Right.
not spend the time on it. So there were several points where they could have, but they didn't. Goldie Pond, the family that's helping them / hunting them, attacked their thing and killed off some characters. Except they never killed anyone off who was a major character, except for the adults. So,
Right.
BS. Like, they've already killed kids in this show. You can kill more kids.
Oh, sure.
The kid pile can
100%.
always rise higher.
That's right.
So you have like basically a shying away from the concept. And then the ending just comes from nowhere, and it's about demon society, and oh, they're actually kind of oppressed too by the queen, and all these other people who have been evil people. Like in Goldie Pond, they kill the top four like demon guys, like leaders of the families or whatever, except for the archbishop,
Right.
who is inexplicably immortal.
Wait. So the kids kill them all?
Yeah, they also kill the queen later on. They don't kill all the demons, but
So this is all true, but it's so much better than.
Okay, listen.
cannot emphasize.
I accept that the anime did a terrible job, but what I'm saying is that the material itself is way worse than people remember.
Yeah, that actually does sound kind of trash, Ben. I agree with you there.
Like it like
Heard that Goldie Pond is actually.
it was good, but they didn't spend the same amount of time on it. Think of it as the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 chapters of the original arc, right? So, but only those 5 to 10 chapters. So, like 2 introduction chapters, 3 to 4 setup chapters, and then 3 to 4 finishing up chapters, 1 epilogue. That's the whole arc, and you compare that depth to something like the original arc. It just isn't there. I don't know
Sure.
whether that was a story writing problem or whether that was an editorial problem or whether that was just the guy only had one idea really, and so he keeps trying to rehash it in different ways. Sadistic
It sounds
choices
like
and everything.
It sounds like an outline problem. Like whoever the author was, they didn't write an outline. They didn't make a plan, and so they had a really great idea, and then they just didn't know where to go with it after that.
I mean, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable thing to say, but it's it's like one of those things where I for like the second I realized that they only had a few tricks, I'm like, okay, I'm reading this because I want to know the ending, but I'm actually
Right.
super not invested in the characters. They refused to kill off any of the characters. They brought other characters back, and their reveal was not as good as it was. The fact that the blonde-haired kid was turned into a murderous guy, something, 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 just felt bad. It felt like a bad twist. We got to kill demons or something. And it's like, yeah, kill the demons who have been hunting you and eating you, who
Yeah.
view you as a delicacy. They're like, it's like they threw around all these moral issues and they didn't have any answers for it. Like,
Right.
even if the answer was kill them all, it would have been a braver ending. It would have been a more satisfying ending than the weird stuff involving the queen and the problems that just get solved. Like, one of the guys who helped them out was hunting these kids, in Goldie Pond.
Okay.
The Archbishop guy. And it's
Okay.
like, I hate what it did. It's not good. Maybe the first 30 chapters are good. Genuinely they were good. But it's
Sure.
like, once they left that original premise, once they left where the author was most confident, they did not either spend the time on it or they didn't let it go the way it should have, and it declined precipitously. Once
It sounds like they tried to make the kids into superheroes there if they're killing archdemons and whatever and stuff like that, which absolutely sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. Well, no, they established it. It was established within the rules. But what I'm saying is, what I'm complaining about is more about how the promises that were made were not fulfilled in any way, shape, or form, and so it became
Sure.
very dissatisfying. Because even if
Gotcha.
it was just a rehash of the first bit, they weren't willing to. Not only did they have a lack of creativity, but they weren't willing to spend the time to handle that lack of creativity.
Right.
All right, rant over. I'm done.
No, it's an excellent rant. I'm very glad that you
Yes.
shortened your lifespan in order to give us those brief few moments.
There was a guy who was shot in the throat once, and he
Yeah.
goes, the doctor goes, if you ever speak again, you will surely die. He's like, oh, good, and then he died. I think it was like from the Civil War or something.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Is that a real story? Because it sounds
I
just
can't-
dumb enough to be real.
I can't actually remember what he said.
So it sounds just epic enough to be true.
Anyway,
I
you
love
guys
it.
keep going.
So,
Anyway,
back to,
Shokugeki no Soma.
yes.
Yes, it's ridiculous, and obviously the ecchi elements of people's clothes coming off. I mean, you know, all the naughty bits are covered tastefully, but it's just so off the wall ridiculous that it almost feels like, even me who hates off the wall ridiculous anime, for some reason I love this. Maybe it's because the food just looks so amazing. I mean, there is nothing more tasty looking than anime food. As a cook personality, I can still say I wish I could cook food as tasty as anime makes it look.
Yeah, it's just I couldn't get sleep. I couldn't do it.
I totally understand. Totally valid. I actually introduced a friend of mine. I got him. I introduced him to anime by watching 3 shows in a row: Konosuba, Cowboy Bebop, Angel Beats, because I wanted to introduce him to a sad show, but one that was also that still had action to it, and Shokugeki no Soma. And he, thus far, he's loved every single one of the shows I've shown him.
No, he's
Even
got
Angel
trash
Beats.
taste.
He's got normie taste. I'm gradually getting him more interested in the good stuff. Like Cowboy Bebop, you gotta admit that. Even that's a good one.
It's a great one.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bebop's a great show, but Angel
Yeah.
Beats is not.
Oh no, Angel Beats is terrible. But like I said, I wanted to get him interested in an anime that does have an emotional aspect to it, but that will still have action. So that was a shorter one that I knew I could get, that I could gradually build him up to the stuff that's actually good, like the Anohanas and stuff.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I would have just shown him on a Hana to be honest with
Sure.
you.
And I probably
But
should have.
Anyway, if you want to pick a sad, some pick on him. It's not that one. It's fairly good. Yeah, and honestly, if I were really trying to give somebody a gateway drug, film, random Miyazaki.
Which
pick
one?
your poison. Any random Miyazaki.
Oh, Miyazaki, yeah, absolutely.
Probably if you Miyazaki to get somebody interested in anime, it would be Kasuga.
I couldn't understand a word you said.
If you wanted me to pick any random single Miyazaki to get somebody into anime, it would probably be Kasuga.
Interesting. I would actually consider that the least likely one I would have picked.
What?
Really? I always just thought it was very Western. And just for those 2 reasons, I feel like it's pretty much.
I think I would actually pick Howl's Moving Castle, just because Castle in the Sky is still very much it is a kid story. The main character, as I recall, is still a child.
Yeah, I could see that. That was
And if you're not used to
that...
anime, then the fact that they always use kids is really jarring. So I would have to pick something that was a little bit more adult, and yeah, Howl's Moving Castle. It's adult. Yeah, it's got a little bit more anime stuff to it, but it still feels like a mature story.
I get your point. Like, the reason I would pick Castle in the Sky specifically as a gateway is because I feel like it is, number one, it's very Western in style.
Okay.
And I also just generally consider Castle in the Sky almost impossible to like.
Sure.
But it's just so enjoyable. The action scenes
Right.
in Castle are honestly some of my favorites. Like, when they have that scene on the train at the beginning, the train chase sequence.
Oh yeah, it's a great chase sequence.
My all-time favorite action sequences.
Absolutely.
And there's just the fact that if you were to actually describe the Castle in the Sky out loud, you realize that it's actually a very classic, very straightforward fairy tale.
Sure.
Like, it's literally about the orphan boy falls in love with a princess in a magical city, and the evil prince they don't say marry because it's a kids' film,
right?
And Miyazaki isn't a creep,
right?
But That's essentially what's going on, right? The orphan, the orphan boy needs to rescue the princess who's going to be forced to marry the evil prince.
Right.
In the princess of a magical city. Like, it is a very, very straight tale, but it's like a stealth fairy tale.
Sure.
Like,
And then, of course, what I
only-
really love is you've got Mark Hamill voicing the bad guy in the dub.
Yes.
The Miyazaki
Mark
dubs are
Hamill's
amazing.
They are, mostly, at least. They are mostly brilliant. I do think that a couple of the later ones, especially, do suffer a little bit, like celebrity voice.
Yeah. Which one?
Ponyo has that a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Like with Betty White, you could tell they just kind of to be white.
Right.
On the other hand, though, like Tina Fey is also she's great.
Oh yeah, I forgot she was the voice of the mom in Ponyo.
She was the mom.
Yeah, she was really good in that.
But I do remember just thinking, and it's the same thing. This is Miyazaki, essentially. Sorry, podcast.
Say again, Anthony.
I said, "What can it hurt? It's our podcast. We can talk about what we want." I remember in, I think, the Secret World of Arrietty, they had Carol King as one of the voices, and I felt like that really stood out as a case of celebrity voice-itis. Like,
right.
They weren't really concerned with getting this person for the role. They just wanted somebody famous.
Sure. You know who I think the best casting, though, was in the whole thing? I think the main character in almost everybody in Spirited Away, absolutely incredible. I love
Spirited Away is one of my favorite dubs.
Couldn't understand a word you said. Okay, it's incredible. There we go.
Spirited Away is one of my favorite dubs.
Absolutely. But I also say I think the voice of Old Sophie in Howl's Moving Castle is one of my favorite voices in any genre, any performance. I thought she did an absolutely incredible job.
That's a good pick.
And she, if I remember correctly, she is a classic actress too, like Lauren Bacall or something like that.
Yeah, Lauren Bacall was in it. But she played the Witch of Place.
That's right. And she did a very good job too, don't get me wrong. But
she did, yes.
And that was one of the reasons I love that show too.
Yeah, Hal's had I remember thinking that Christian Bale wasn't great, but then my sister was like, if you read the book, the way they describe the character is exactly the way that Christian Bale is portraying it.
Oh, interesting. So which is very Christian Bale. Like, you could absolutely tell that Christian Bale, he's the kind of actor that would never be interested in anime, but in order to get into the role, he would read all of the manga, he'd watch the original version of the Japanese sub. He'd do whatever he could to make the best possible performance. Ooh, that was agony.
Yeah, sorry. And I am a big Christian Bale fan. It's great to binge every time.
Even though I don't like every movie he's done, I will say his performance is at least believable every single time it's either believable or it's stunning every single time he takes the screen.
Yeah, and weirdly, his worst performance is probably as Batman.
You know, I can see that. And the thing is, I don't think that's his fault.
In the Fighter.
Right.
No. Right. He's great in The Fighter, and he was great in...
The Machinist, or Machinist.
I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking of Ford versus...
Oh, I didn't see that, but
my very good movie, by the way.
My mom was an extra in that.
Was she really?
Yeah, she was in one of the racing scenes. I don't remember which one. I never saw it.
It's a very good movie. I highly recommend.
Nice.
You want to know one of the reasons it's a good movie? It's a movie that's actually
I would love to know why it's a good movie.
It's a movie that is about men.
Ah, yes.
Like, I just remember early in the movie, there is a scene where they show, like, all of the workers in Henry factory, and they show all of the people, and they show everybody there, and there are no women, and they're all white.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I can't believe this was made in the modern day.
That's true. Like historical accuracy has now been done away with in the service of not wanting to make anyone feel left out.
It's a very masculine feeling movie. There is
Sure.
one role in it. It's the wife. And, like she might honestly be the only.
Wow.
Now that I think about it,
Kind of sounds like Cinderella Man, which is another very good sports movie.
it is. So we'll use this as our. By the way, this is actually a good segment. We'll use this as a comparison. So the differences between American sports and sports cliches and sports films
Sure.
and anime. So first off, I will tell you that my absolute favorite sports movie of all time is Rudy. Have you seen Rudy before?
I have seen Rudy. It absolutely epitomizes all of the American tropes of sports movies. Even though I don't really like it, I can at least appreciate why everyone else does.
So I will admit that the end of the movie, like the very end, when
Right.
they chanting his name, is a little bit over.
Yes, that's what
totally
took me out of it.
understand that.
Right.
But there are scenes in Rudy that are some of my all-time favorites. Like, they have the one scene that always. First off, the soundtrack's unbelievable. It's Jerry Goldsmith. I think that's it. Goldsmith, right?
Probably.
I think so. Anyway, it's Jerry Goldsmith, and the soundtrack in Rudy is unbelievable, like all-time great level soundtrack. And there's just this one scene in Rudy where he keeps applying and applying to the game,
right?
And he keeps getting rejected. And now finally they say, like, this is the last year that they don't accept people who are juniors into Notre Dame, past junior year into Notre Dame, so he has to get in this year. And the scene, I think, is just first off, Sean Astin is amazing. And what I love about the scene is how it's so understated. Like, they show him getting the letter. He walks over, he starts reading the letter, and then you just see Sean Astin burst into tears while he's reading the letter. And he's just sobbing and goes, "Thank God." He puts the letter down and jogs it. And that's the scene.
Yeah.
Absolutely one of my all-time favorite scenes in any sports movie. It's beautifully done. I love the understatement of it. Like, the music isn't like super triumphant. It's there. But for a movie that's very over the top with its music for the most part, it's like very in the background. And Sean Astin doesn't jump in the air. It's not like a moment of,
it's
like
just a
super
quiet.
It's a moment of relief.
Right.
It's just wonderfully done. So that's the main reason. Like, I do admit that they start to slow chant. It's a little bit silly.
Right.
And I agree with that as a criticism. But there's so much good stuff. And honestly, the ending did happen. Yeah.
Sure. Oh,
Rudy Rudiger. Oh, yeah. Rudy Rudiger to this day is the only person who field of the game.
Now say that again. You broke up at the end there.
Rudy Rudiger to this day. Yeah. Rudy Rudiger to this day is the only person to ever have been carried off the field.
Oh, wow.
And he really did get a sack in a game. Like, that was real. There's some of the drama in the game. Yeah, some of it's manufactured. Like, for example, they give him a lot of conflict with the new coach. They have the coach get replaced mid-season, and then the new coach doesn't want to play him, and the team needs to go out and do it, and that's all made up. Like, the coach was replaced mid-season, but it was actually the new coach that came up with the idea to play Rudy in a game. And they also, like, they sort of portray it in the final game that the coach refuses to put Rudy in, and the team needs to make a play so that they put Rudy in the game, and that didn't happen. Rudy was actually put in for the first play of the game.
Sure.
They just ran the play on the other side of the field and took Rudy off the field. And he did play, and they did put him in again at the end. And he did get a sack. Like, that's all real, and it's also unbelievable.
Sure.
But it wasn't like, are you even gonna get the game? You know.
Right. I think my favorite sports movie is also, honestly, the whole franchise is pretty much an anime, and that is the Rocky Saga.
Oh, that's a good pick. The original Rocky is an unbelievable movie.
It really is. It's one of it, it's not just one of my favorite sports movies. It's one of my favorite movies in general, uh, and really it does follow an anime protagonist story from beginning to end. You know, you got this guy who is kind of a slacker, an underachiever, kind of dumb, but he's got a dream, and he's kind of gotten his opportunity handed to him to achieve his dream, but he doesn't really think he's worthy of it, and he's worried about that. And so the
So
entire first movie is all about, will you go the distance? Not will you
I
win.
agree with this. Here is my controversial take on Rocky.
Okay.
Rocky was never ever nearly as good as it was in the first movie.
Didn't understand what you said.
Rocky has never ever nearly been as good as it was since its first movie. The first movie is by far the best.
Okay. I will
Like not
agree
even
with.
close.
I believe the first movie is the best. I believe the second movie is very, very good and very close. And I realized that because I watched the first and the second movie back to back. Now, I saw the first movie, 5 years before I saw the second, but then I've been watching during 2020. Me and my neighbors, we would go over to each other's apartments and we would just watch movies. So we did a Rocky marathon. We watched 1 and 2 back to back in the same 2-day period. Um, and I will agree that the first one is a better movie, but the second is still very, very good.
So I'm gonna give you an even more, the
You gonna be
second
what?
best Rocky. I'm gonna give you an even more controversial.
Okay.
Second best Rocky is Rocky Six.
Is Rocky what?
Six.
Rocky 6. Okay, now that's Creed,
Rocky
isn't it?
Balboa.
Oh, Rocky Balboa. I did not watch that one.
So that's when Rocky comes out of and to basically he gets into one last fight.
Oh, is this the one where with Velo whatever as his son, and where it was basically estimated that Rocky, like there was like a computer simulation on on ESPN that said, "Oh,
Yeah,
Rocky
that's
would
it.
beat the current champion." Okay, okay, I remember that. I did
That
see
was
that one.
it. So that movie was actually way, way better than it had any right to be.
Absolutely, it was.
Like I thought it was going to be terrible, and I really enjoyed it.
Sure. I want to
With
watch
that,
it again because I've only watched it once when it first came out.
the first Rocky's just so good. The Critical Drinker said it. He did in one of his early reviews. He did a review of Rocky, and
Mhm.
he mentions like the moment where Rocky gets up on the canvas while Mickey is trying to stay down
Right.
is one of. He says that's one of the few perfect.
Absolutely. It is a
There
perfect
is
scene.
like every single time I watch that scene, it does not matter in context, out of context, you get emotional. Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna say like I tear up or anything because I don't,
Sure.
but I do get
You
emotional
could have said you
watching.
did. I wouldn't have mocked you for it. It's a good moment.
Uh, It's just like you get it. It's so hard not to be invested and not to, and it's a perfect moment because when you watch it, just for like that 1 second, you forget it's a movie.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. You feel like you're really there. And I would say that entire fight with Creed is that same way, so that it earns the moment where he gets back up.
It does. Just with the soundtrack going in the background though, and Mickey
Yeah.
Evans stay
Yeah.
down, background. He gets to his feet. It's perfect. I don't even really have anything to like. I don't even have a commentary to make. You know
Sure.
what I mean,
I mean,
like
the
it's
scene
just
itself is the only
a
commentary you
perfect
need.
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is a perfect scene.
absolutely.
The
Also,
original Rocky is very interesting in retrospect because you kind of forget till you watch it just how dark that movie
oh,
is.
it's so dark.
it's Rocky's life is so bad.
He's a
Like,
mafia member.
so bad. Yeah.
He's a mob enforcer.
And he doesn't like it. Like, I don't even think you're supposed to think he's a bad guy. You're supposed to feel kind of bad for him because, like, he clearly doesn't like doing it.
Sure, but he still does it.
Yeah, and Mickey too. Like the scene where Mickey goes up to him and says, "Hey, can I be your trainer?"
Right.
And
Oh man, it's so heartbreaking.
oh, it's such a good scene.
It
Like,
is.
it's so much darker than any other. You sort
Yeah.
of forget that the movie is that dark because it doesn't really, to be honest, like the franchise sort of went away from that level of darkness and
It did.
depression.
Yeah, I agree. Although it's interesting, you still have Rocky being kind of lazy in number 3. You know, he loses to Clever Lang because he's not you know, he just doesn't care. And honestly, I think that's probably the weirdest part about the Rocky saga is it's kind of a man's struggle with his own apathy and his own fame in a way.
Yeah.
Like, why should I keep fighting? You know, I've already done this, that, and the other.
Yeah,
then
and that's
and then you
kind
got
of
this.
that's one of the reasons Rocky 6 is an interesting movie because
Yeah,
Rocky 6 it could only have had the impact it had for being like the 6th movie in a long series.
right.
But on the flip side, Rocky's 3, 4, 5
Rocky 3, 4, 5. What? Anthony,
were
what'd you say?
terrible.
Oh, I mean, 3 was okay. 3 was about a 75% good movie, 25% kind of dumb. Rocky 4 was just straight up anime. It was a cartoon. I mean, just think
I
about
mean,
it.
it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a guy who has a robot sidekick who takes down the Soviet Empire, Union.
Hysterical.
It's
And then, like,
ridiculous.
Rocky just gives a speech on, like, love at the end of the movie. It's so
Yes, it is. It is really dumb, but it's dumb in an endearing. It's
Make no mistake, that is a bad movie.
oh yeah, 100%. But it's still better than most of the Drek put out today.
I mean, just because it had sincerity, you can
Yeah,
tell
exactly.
that Sylvester Stallone really believed in that, which
Right.
makes it kind of endearing.
Right.
But it's not good.
It's kind of like, by the same token, his first trip as Rambo is exceedingly. That is a dark movie. People forget.
Yes.
People only know of Rambo from the memes and the later like Second Blood, you know, Rambo 2, 3, 4. But the first movie is dark. I mean, good grief. You got a homeless vet gets chased out, basically arrested for vagrancy, and then he escapes. A manhunt happens. He defends himself, and he basically has 1 hour long Vietnam flashback where he just kills everything. I mean, it's a dark film. Apparently, the original ending of the movie, the colonel that gets him at the end, he talks Rambo down. He says, "It's all right, Rambo. The fight's over," and then he just puts a bullet in his head.
Yikes.
Yeah, no sequels, no redemption, just dead.
Yeah,
Because
you
Rambo
know,
is.
the
Just to continue. Say what you're gonna say.
I was going to say, you know what, actually, this is another example where, like, I would argue that the second best Rainbow movie is not the last one. They made
Right.
They made a last movie and then they made
I would
That's
agree.
just
It's.
total
I would
garbage.
say the best is when he. Yeah, when he basically had to go rescue the missionaries.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually a really good movie, and it did
Yeah.
not get good critical reviews. But I was like shocked at how good it was.
It is
I had very
surprisingly
low
good.
expectations, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I absolutely agree.
But Rambo was never as consistently good of a series, even as Rocky. Like, you know,
Yeah, I
as
agree.
much as I criticize Rocky 2, I didn't think Rocky 2 was a bad movie by any means. It's a was quite a good movie. Uh, I just don't think it was as good as Rocky 1, and I think Rocky 6 was an excellent movie. Rocky Balboa. For that matter, I even Contracritical Drinker here
Oh,
liked
so
Creed. I thought
interesting.
that Creed and Creed 2 were pretty decent.
Interesting. Okay.
Now,
Can you
with that
elaborate in a
said,
way that I'll understand?
sure.
Okay.
The thing about Creed is that I understand Critical Drinker's point that Rocky had already completed this character arc and they had to Luke Skywalker it away a little bit so
Mhm.
that to give Creed an arc and to give Rocky something to do in the movie.
Mhm.
But with that, and I totally get that, and I don't necessarily disagree. With that said, as the story of Creed himself, I think
Mhm.
that it worked fine. And I also disagree. Like, I even Critical Drinker, like this was years ago. He might have even responded to me on the comment section. Where,
Ooh.
like, he was finding, he was picking out plot problems, great, and
Right.
I don't agree with some of the plot problems that he was picking out. And I responded
Interesting.
to him and said, "No, that's not. I'm like, that's not correct. Like, it actually does make sense." And he said, "Well, my problem with the story was that it was, basically copying Rocky without putting the work." But I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they do enough to make Creed his own.
Sure.
And the thing is that the sequel movie, which is actually really a sequel to Rocky 4, actually
Oh.
does quite a kind of rehabilitate Rocky 4
Oh,
in
interesting.
a weird way. Yeah. Like they take the story so it's about like the son Ivan
Right. Right.
Drago takes on Creed
Uh huh.
and he loses the fight because he's disqualified for a cheap blow for
Uh huh.
you know get having a cheap blow. I don't know how. Uh, he loses the fight, but he beats the crap. Out of Creed, and
Sure.
everybody knows that Creed was on his way to losing that fight, and he's badly beaten. And Creed is mad at Rocky because Rocky didn't want to have him with the fight because he said like,
Right.
I left that part of my past kind of, but they turn it into this really interesting thing where like Von Drago is obsessed with getting revenge on Rocky, and the son is just kind of trying, and his son is just kind of trying to make his father proud, and he's not really a hateful person, but he's gotten caught up in this. And
Right.
there's this actually like a genuinely, I thought anyway, moving moment at the end of the movie in the final fight where
Uh huh.
Creed is now winning the fight and he's beating the crap out of the son, and the father throws in the towel to end the fight. And I'm like, I actually really like that ending. It's kind of a touching ending. Like, the father now in this moment realizes that he would rather not see his son get, brutalized for this decades old conflict that he wasn't really a part of.
Hmm. Okay. I
I'm like,
like
it's
that.
kind of a touching ending. Um, I enjoyed them. So yeah, I enjoyed them. Uh, I don't think the Creed movies are bad by any means. I don't think as good as Rocky or even close to it.
Well,
But
sure.
on the other hand, the original Rocky is legitimately one of the greatest movies ever made, and
Yeah.
I would say honestly doesn't get enough respect
I would
because
agree.
people have kind of looked at Rocky as a franchise now, and almost like the franchise of Rocky as a whole.
Right.
And I don't think that they've given enough respect to the fact that the original movie is a genuine
And even
that
worse, I'd say they've looked at all of Sylvester Stallone's filmography and they're like, oh, he can't act, he can't write, he can't direct. Oh no, he can do all three of those things and he can
yeah.
win Oscars with all three. He
And
just
by the
chooses not
way,
to.
his acting in the original is
I'm not entirely sure what you said, but I'm assuming you said something effective. It was one of the best performances ever because I would agree with that.
yeah, I would say what I said was his acting in the original actually excellent. Like it had layers to it
Yes. Yes. It's a
that
very
people
layered
did
performance.
not give him. Like it was legitimately more than there were layers to that performance. It was a very, very well.
Right. It it's yeah, no, I absolutely I would love to be able to make a film or to make a performance. It doesn't even have to be as well received by any stretch of the imagination as good as Rocky, but I would love to at least be able to deliver a performance or write a role that is as emotionally resonant, even if it's just resonant with myself, as Rocky Balboa in the first
Yeah,
Rocky movie.
and you were getting at what I think is one of the most interesting things about it, which is that, like, if you actually watch the movie, it's kind of fascinating when you see like what Rocky's mindset is.
Right.
Like, people have turned Rocky into this sort of avatar for, if you believe in yourself, you could do anything, but that's not the movie at all.
No,
Rocky
no,
straight up does not believe that he could do it. He
absolutely,
actually doubts himself, probably more even than other people do.
absolutely. It's the people in his path that pretty much force him to greatness.
Yeah, they even, like, when they first tell him Apollo wants to fight you, his immediate reaction is, "That's a terrible idea. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
crushed."
Yeah, yeah. He chooses not to until Mickey basically says, "Ah, you bum! What are you gonna do, Rocky? Huh? You gonna? I had it. You have a chance. You're gonna be a bum your whole life, Rocky."
And even going into the final fight, like, Rocky does not go into that fight with the intention of winning. He goes into that fight with the intention of lasting the fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that was
It wasn't to
always the
win.
goal.
Yeah, and that's why I'm amazed that they had the maturity to hold back and not have him win the first movie. Which, I mean,
100%.
spoilers if you're listening.
That's one
But
of the that's one of the reasons that Rocky is such a perfect film.
yeah,
Because he absolutely has to lose.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
they play it perfectly.
they do.
He loses, but he doesn't care. He doesn't
Exactly,
even react. He doesn't even listen to the verdict. Like, he doesn't
exactly.
care what the
And
judges
we, the
say.
audience, barely
That
even
was
hear
never-
that he lost.
Yeah, because that's not the point.
Exactly.
That's
And
no
honestly,
longer why.
and I think that's why the anime that was a tribute to Rocky, Megalobox, I think it was excellent right up until the very end, where they decided to change the ending, and instead of have the main character lose, they decided to have him win his big underdog fight. That if they had kept with the Rocky formula, I think that first season of Megalobox would have been one of the best anime, one of the best sports anime. But because they had him win, it's just like, okay, it was good, it was fine.
Yeah, that's also kind of one of the reasons I've never loved Rocky 2.
Okay,
Because once to the ending, in Rocky 1, Rocky losing the fight,
Mhm.
like, nowadays, well, Rocky's so famous, we all know.
right.
It was honestly genuinely a surprising ending.
Oh, absolutely, it was.
Like, people did not think, that's not how those stories go, right? You're
Sure.
supposed to win the final game. But that's not what
And of
they
course,
do.
and when I first saw the movie, because I knew about the Rocky franchise, but I didn't know much about the Rocky movie itself. When I first watched Rocky 1, I was amazed that he lost.
Exactly. So that's one of the reasons when we got to Rocky 2, he has to win the fight.
Right.
He can't lose the fight.
Right. He
So
has
it's
to win
no
the fight,
longer
but yes, but at the same time, what I think is so good about it is it actually does, if I remember correctly, and I will admit, it was a couple years ago. I need to watch it again. I feel like it was earned, the victory, whereas it wouldn't have been earned in the first one. It was earned in the second.
I agree. I mean, it's not like, I don't think Rocky 2 was a bad movie.
Sure.
I just think it was clearly worse.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say Rocky 1 is probably a 95%. Rocky 2, maybe 85.
That's fair. I think that's fair. In terms of other sports films, so here's something that I noticed a long time ago that I always thought was fascinating and
What's that?
people shouldn't talk about. Have you seen
What's
the
that?
movie Hoosiers?
I have.
Have you seen
It's
the movie Friday Night Lights?
I have not.
Okay, that's too
I,
bad. Because the point that I was going to make, I will make,
sure.
is that Friday Night Lights and Hoosiers are actually in many ways almost the same film. They have the
Interesting.
same basic message,
Uh-huh.
and they have the same structure,
Okay.
except that Hoosiers is more optimistic, but fundamentally, they are saying basically the same thing.
Sure. I will
So,
say,
what were you going to?
what was what?
What were you going to say about Hoosiers?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. It definitely it was definitely formulaic in terms of underdog team comes forward, wins in the end. Um, it's not one that I would watch multiple times, but I enjoyed it when I did watch it. What I liked
So,
better though was when I was in high school. I really liked Remember the Titans.
I did like Remember the Titans. I liked Remember the Titans a lot in high school, and I
Yeah,
don't even know why.
it was just a very well done movie, and it didn't feel like it was preaching at us when it was saying, "Hey,
Yeah,
we are equal in worth, despite the fact that we are different races."
I agree. I actually really liked Remember the Titans. That was a good movie.
Yeah,
So the point of Hoosiers, the real message of Hoosiers was
right,
that
right.
town sports is toxic and is actually and the obsession with it is actually harmful to the kids who should be playing it to enjoy,
Oh, interesting.
right?
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's true.
I
I would
would
agree with that.
argue that that's the message of Hoosiers.
Okay,
Uh,
I can see that.
Friday Night Lights, which, by the way, interestingly enough, ends with them losing the big game at the end.
Oh, interesting.
Um, yeah, it's based on, well, first off, it's actually based on a book called Friday Night Lights. It's about a real season in the town. So
Well,
it's
both
always
both of
the
them are all three of the movies we just mentioned are based on real stories. Remember the Titans, Friday
Hoosiers.
Night Lights, Hoosiers.
Hoosiers is very lightly inspired by a real
Okay,
story.
fair.
Remember the Titans is sort of based on with a lot of changes. Friday
Mhm.
Night Lights was based on a nonfiction book.
Okay, okay,
So of the three, the one that's most like three is actually
okay,
although they
fair.
may turn it into a TV show completely unrelated, basically, but whatever.
I've
That
heard good
might be
things about
enough.
the TV show, but I've never watched it.
Yeah, I've heard the show is good. I'm not criticizing.
Right.
It's totally fiction. Uh, but the movie is really interesting. So the movie Friday Night Lights became famous for having very, very brutal football scenes.
I remember that. I've seen some of those clips of it.
It's true, by the way. The football scenes in the Friday Night Lights movie are absolutely punishing to watch. They
Right.
look like real football. And
Absolutely.
that is a genuine compliment. With that said, what I find interesting about Friday Night Lights is even though the town of Friday Night Lights is a nice small town, the town in Indiana, it has basically the same message. Obsession with sports is actually harmful to the kids who are taking part of it,
Sure.
and it's unhealthy for the town.
And yet, I would say that America
I
missed the
find it
message
really
overall.
What was that?
I would say America missed the message overall, though, because I mean, nobody ever looked back at sports and then said, maybe we shouldn't be, pushing our kids so hard in Alabama or Texas to be sports legends. It's like, no, we're going to keep doing this. Great movie, great inspiring story. We're still going to sacrifice our children to the gridiron.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as somebody who I genuinely enjoy sports, like
Right.
I
I do
haven't
too.
watched, and I stopped watching it pretty much, except for I would watch hockey if they made it easy to watch.
That's
There's
true.
hockey,
It is not easy to
but
watch.
it's so annoying
Yeah.
because
And
I
the thing is,
actually really like hockey.
while we were
But
talking and while I was trying to understand what you were saying, every once in a while, I'd just be watching clips of the playoff game between the Buccaneers and Eagles today because that's how much I love sports.
yeah, and I looked up the scores of the games. I'm invested.
Sure.
With that said, remember, kids, the NFL is gay. They said it themselves. This is not me. I'm not telling you this. The NFL is telling you this.
That's right.
So if you don't want to be gay,
Don't watch.
that's the main reason. And it's genuinely painful to me because I really do enjoy watching sports. Like somebody mentioned, and I think this is a good way of putting it. Like, sports are the hero stories of the common man.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
all about narratives, right?
Yeah.
It's about the narratives that form both in game and across the season.
Sure.
And it's one of the reasons that baseball is one of my favorites, because you get hundreds of baseball games a year. This
Right.
allows for stories to form aren't really
Absolutely.
possible in these other shorter sports, which I like too, though. I like football. You know, I'm
I mean, this is why I'm
I'm
rooting for Tom Brady, because his entire story is incredible. The guy's 44,
yeah,
45 years
it
old,
is.
and he is still breaking records. He had
I
a
agree.
5,000-yard season this year.
Oh yeah, it's insane. Uh, and again, like the one sport that I'm willing to watch is the one sport that is very difficult to watch,
Yeah, hockey.
and that's
Yeah,
hockey, and it's
sure,
very annoying.
sure.
Like football, because because the NFL is totally converged. I would
Right,
watch football. And baseball is the same way. I'm a huge
sure,
Yankee fan. I would have been watching the Yankees, and I still follow the team. I refuse to actually put on the games
sure.
because baseball's converged.
I,
And
I
this
would
is
love to
like
be more of a
genuine
fan, but
step. What was that?
I would love to be more of a fan. But here in Los Angeles, because I look so much like Justin Turner, every time the Dodgers play and get into the playoffs, I get worried that Justin Turner is going to make a mistake and lose, and I'm going to get stabbed because people here see like 5 redheads and they're like, "Oh, you got to be this guy." And Los
Yeah, this
Angeles
is a good.
are known for stabbing people. Stupid
Become an
Dodgers
Angels
fans.
fan. No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding. Don't do
that'll
that.
end well
That's
for me.
yeah, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah,
Uh, but it's actually like that's a really good example, though. So here's an example: the Los Angeles Angels, one of the all-time worst names.
sure.
Uh, the Los Angeles of Anaheim.
Yeah,
Just
it's ridiculous.
uh, but and they're never good any year somehow. But what makes the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim say every time to emphasize how retarded it is. What makes them fascinating is that they have several of the best players in the history of the sport
Right.
playing for their team at any given time, and they still somehow manage to be terrible every year. So
I think what makes
year,
them I disagree.
go
I think
ahead.
what makes them interesting and so whatever is the team was pretty much created around a movie. Angels in the Outfield.
Was
I mean, just the fact that exists and it pretty much created the team is outstanding to me. It is an
well.
okay movie. Doesn't have a good replayability. I wouldn't watch it now, but
So did you know that the one that we all know, is a remake?
the which one?
The '90s one that we all know, remake.
Okay, say it one more time because your audio still sucks.
The '90s movie of the Angels in the Outfield movie that all of us know and love, or
Yes,
think is okay, is a remake
it's a remake. Really,
of a '50s film, I believe.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Huh?
yep. If you look it up, it is actually a remake.
I'm gonna do that right now. All right. Angels in the Outfield remake. Da, 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 da. Oh yeah, of a 1951 film of the same name. Wow. Okay, let's pop this one up. That one starred Paul Douglas and Janet Leigh.
And also, by the way, it has pretty good reviews.
Huh. And it made back its budget. It made 50% back its budget. Huh.
Yeah. It's about the Pirates too, of all teams.
Ooh. I'm gonna have to watch this or see if I can find it somewhere because that really sounds interesting to me.
It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. Okay, so that's definitely gonna be a thing I look for.
We'll watch it, do a comparison.
I like it.
But yeah, anyway. So in terms of like the Angels nowadays,
Right.
so you know that they had. Do you know? I don't know how closely you follow baseball, but you know Mike Trout.
Do I know what?
Who Mike Trout is?
Yes, I know Mike Trout. Great,
Yeah.
great player. But
So here's the thing about Mike Trout.
Mhm.
Mike Trout is actually probably better than
He's probably
like
better
if
than
you
who?
pick he's better probably than you even realized he was.
Oh, sure. If
Mike
he
Trout
was
has
on any
always-
other team, he would be
Yeah.
getting rings.
Oh, if he was on the Yankees, he would be a megastar, for example.
Yes.
But Mike Trout is not on the Yankees. He is on the
No.
Angels.
Exactly.
And the thing is, though, that if you actually compare Mike Trout's to name any of the greatest players in baseball, here's the
Right.
example that really blew me. You compare Mike Trout to Mickey Mantle.
Right.
Compare his first 10 seasons to Mickey Mantle.
Uh-huh.
Mike Trout is better than Mickey Mantle.
No.
He is actually a better player statistically than Mickey Mantle.
Huh.
And you didn't even know that because he plays for the Los Angeles Angels and
Exactly.
Mickey Mantle plays for the Yankees.
Huh.
And the Angels this year got Shohei Ohtani. Do you know who Ohtani is by any chance?
Say his name again.
Shohei Ohtani.
Nope, I have no idea who he is.
All right. He won the MVP this year. He played
Okay.
for the Angels.
Okay.
But there is something very interesting about it.
Hmm.
Ohtani was a two-way player.
Okay.
He is the first two-way player since Babe Ruth.
Really?
What that means, he pitched and he hit. And he was an all-star level pitcher and an all-star level hitter.
Huh.
The last player to do this was Babe Ruth.
Totally
Except
forgot that he was a
Shohei
pitcher.
Ohtani actually did it better.
Huh.
When Babe Ruth was doing both, he was not as good as Ohtani was doing. Now, there is a difference here, which is that when Babe Ruth became a full-time hitter, he was better than anybody else in the history of baseball.
Well, except for
literally
Hank
hit
Aaron.
No, actually, Babe Ruth hit more home runs in, I believe the season was 24. Babe Ruth hit 54 home runs.
Right.
It was more home runs than every other team in
Right.
baseball.
Ooh, I didn't catch that. That's awesome.
Except for the Phillies, and the Phillies had a 280 outfield fence. They out-homered Ruth as a team by 1 or 2.
Right.
With their 280 outfield fence.
Sure.
Babe Ruth hit more home runs than every other team in baseball.
That is incredible.
So when he was a hitter, Babe Ruth was way, way better than anybody else. He was the greatest player.
Right.
But when he was a two-way player, the Shohei Ohtani was actually a better hitter and a better pitcher than Babe Ruth as a two-way player. Which
Now,
is
is this guy Irish, by the way? It sounds like Shohei Ohtani sounds exceedingly Irish.
Japanese.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
When you see the spelling, you'll get it.
Okay, got it.
So
That's awesome, though.
Shohei.
So it literally was the plot to Major then. Season 5.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's incredible. I would not be the least bit surprised considering how popular it is if he was inspired by that series.
Yeah, and the reason I bring all of this up now is that I wish we could do something to fix the convergence of sports, but I don't know what the solution is. The only solution I could really is to follow foreign sports.
Ooh.
And I am willing to do that. The only problem with it is game times tend to be at weird hours that are hard to follow live. When baseball, for example, first 2020 season, at the time I was still willing to watch baseball. Willing to watch MLB. So I was pretty disappointed that the season was canceled.
Right.
And I tried following Korean baseball, which was playing at the time. The games were at 5 in the morning. It wasn't really realistic to follow. So I wish that there was an answer to that. I really don't know what it can be.
Sure,
sad
I have
story.
no idea.
Yeah. It's genuinely sad. I guess the solution is we need to write our own sports anime.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
All right, this is the new project. We're canceling Pinkerton's Ghost. We're making sports anime.
There we
Sorry,
go.
guys.
That's right. You know, Anthony, you got to do a Yankees story with Sean. I would absolutely love to see Sean Russo go to a Yankees game. And apparently Anthony died
Yeah,
so badly.
I actually would have fun doing. No, I'm here.
Okay.
I said I was reading this. Yeah, I actually have fun doing that. No, I would actually like to do a sports day, and it's definitely on the future, but it'll be for the future. Honestly, that would be a really interesting thing to do as part of a radio show. Now, don't get me wrong, like in all seriousness, I am about the future after Pinkerton's Ghost is legitimately over.
Oh man,
But
I'm sorry,
season
sorry,
5.
Anthony. I have not
But in
heard
terms
a
of doing
word
like
you've said.
in
Like everything you've said has just
so what I
been
was saying
gargled.
is in terms of what I was trying to say in terms of uh, sports anime
Mhm.
or a sports show, I actually would be interested in doing it as like a Pinkerton Ghost style radio show. In all seriousness, it would be after Pinkerton's Ghost ended, like really ended. I mean, after season 5.
Right.
Um, with that said, I would 100% be willing to. I would do that. I think that would actually be fascinating because
Sure.
it's a genre that people don't tackle anymore in the West, but clearly has a lot of staying power in
Right.
other parts of the world. I, so to do something like that as like a weekly radio show, a sports anime kind of,
Mhm.
I actually think like that's something I'm gonna on the back for the future. Pick a sport, Ken.
Goodness, well, let's go with hockey since we both said that we would love watching it if we was more available.
Perfect. And there are really no good hockey anime. So
That's true.
I think there's, in fact, I only know of one hockey anime, and it was very bad.
I mean, it's the perfect time for it. I'd watch a hockey anime.
I'm gonna keep like I am legitimately going to keep this in mind for the future for like
Do so.
things go style weekly radio show.
That'd be fantastic.
But it'll be in the future.
Right.
Pinkerton's Ghost is priority number 1. Gonna get through all
Absolutely.
5 seasons, baby. 5
5
seasons
seasons and a movie.
What?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to leave here pretty quick.
Is
So
perfectly fine. We've pretty much covered the requisite amount of time for this to be a reasonably lengthy live stream.
absolutely. I have no
Technical
idea if
issues
anybody will be
are
able to hear
what they
any of
are.
it.
Yeah, the technical issues are what they are. The good news is that I'm on my way towards solving them. The bad news is not yet.
Sure. The bad news is, for the time being, it's probably still chasing away fans, but eventually we won't anymore.
Yes, and it'll be glorious.
It'll be magnificent. But Anthony, this is a
You'll
fantastic
see.
discussion.
We had fun. Thank you for jumping in, Ken.
Thank you for this fantastic topic. I had a lot of fun with it.
You guys.
See,
all right.
Ben,
What?
too much of a square.